And welcome back to the hot stage. So, massive news for the future of rally, the future of the WRC 2027 next year. So, from the FIA today, it's been announced, well, by the time you're watching this, it might be tomorrow, but the WRC 27 cars are set for more competition, it says at the top, with a WRC kit approved for Rally2 cars. This is massive. It's absolutely, if I'm honest, it's absolutely divided the internet. And I have no idea what's going to be happening now. I mean, we'll have a look at the Reddit forums, etc. So the FIA essentially have confirmed that one of the biggest changes to the World Rally Championship in years, and depending on who you ask, as I said, it's either the moment that WRC finally becomes affordable, more competitive and more open, or it's the moment the top class looks a little bit less top class. It's the moment that the 2027, is it going to ride or die? The WRC's main category will just not be for the brand new 27 cars, which is something we kind of alluded to anyway with the fact that Hyundai and M Sport haven't committed. So Rally 2 cars are being invited officially now to the party. But before everyone starts shouting, hang on, this is WRC. Is WRC becoming WRC2 with a spoiler? Well, let's break it down and see what's actually happening before we get people's opinion on it. And one particular person's opinion that I trust and I've always listened to. We'll get to that in the end. So the FIA World Motorsport Council has approved the next major step for the 2027 car. Okay, so from next year, the top category of the World Rally Championship will be open to two types of cars. Okay, you're with me? First, the new 27 cars, or should I say car, because it's basically a Toyota. But these are the new generation of top class designed to replace the Rally 1 machinery. And second, the Rally 2 cars are going to be fitted with a special upgrade package called the Rally2-WRC Kit. Now the question is, didn't David Richards suggest something a while ago? Huh? But the kit will include aerodynamic upgrades, things like new fenders, a new front bumper airfield and an aero device. And according to Dirtfish, it's going to have a maximum cost of €7,500. Fairly affordable maybe then. So we're not talking about a completely new car. We're talking about existing Rally 2 machinery being given an FIA approved upgrade to help bring it closer to the new WRC 27 cars. However, as with all things, there's going to be a catch, isn't there? The car must be homologated before the end of 2026. The kit must be homologated by a registered manufacturer, and the manufacturer has to commit to the full WRC calendar with at least two cars in its first homologation year. That is a lot to commit to. But it's not quite Dave from down the road with his Skoda Fabio and a dream. There's still going to be rules. There understandably is still going to be structure, and there is still sort of a proper manufacturer involved. So why are the FIA doing this? Well, the simple answer is numbers. The WRC's had a problem. Let's be honest. I think we can all agree on that, as I'm trying to itch my nose. They've had problems at the top level for years. The cars are spectacular. Yes. The cars are incredibly... The drivers are incredible. Yes. They sound incredible. Yes. But the top class has been too small. Now, when you have only a handful of rally cars fighting at the front, the championship can feel fragile. One retirement, one crash, one team pulling out, and suddenly the top category is looking rather thin, let's say. And that's exactly what the FIA are going to be trying to avoid for next year. The whole point of the WRC 27 is to reduce cost. I'm not denying that. That is a good idea. They want to attract more manufacturers. Another good idea. And allow independent teams and tuners to get closer to the top level. On paper, another good idea. The FIA's earlier WRC 27 framework talked about a cost cap of €345,000, which it said represented more of a 50%-ish reduction compared to the current Rally 1 cars, the current World Rally Championship cars, which we're seeing. And, I mean, they said we need more cars at the front, we need more depth, we need more teams, we need a way to stop 2027 being Toyota versus Tumbleweed, or just the World Rally Toyota Championship, because right now Toyota is the only confirmed manufacturer building a brand new 2027 car. I know. Okay. Let's look at the positives. Now let's start with the good side, because there are some positives here. We look at potentially bigger fields, for example. That could immediately give the WRC more capable cars of fighting at the front. More cars means more drama, more battles, more jeopardy, and less chance the top class looks empty after a couple of retirements. Second, positive, lower costs. Instead of every team needing to build a brand new WRC 27 car straight away, Rally 2 manufacturers can potentially use those existing cars with a relatively, let's be honest, compared to the current situation, a relatively affordable kit. This matters because rallying is expensive, very expensive, not WEC or F1 expensive, but still. Like, sell your house, sell your dog, possibly your nan's caravan to make it to the weekend expensive. Now, the third positive, more opportunities for drivers. So if more cars are available, more drivers can get a shot at that top category. We've had some movement, but very little. Not that I'm saying we don't want to see the current crop of drivers. We want them added to, let's say, and that could be massive for young talents. And at the moment, the jump from Rally 2 to Rally 1 is enormous. But this could create a smoother pathway where drivers who are already quick in Rally 2, and let's be honest, there are many of them, can suddenly fight closer to the front of the overall WRC field. The fourth one is private teams could matter again. I mean, these rules were designed for a team like M Sport, for example, but this is one of the most exciting parts. The WRC has often been at its best when privateers, customer cars and smaller outfits had a realistic chance of making headlines. This could bring back some of that feeling. Maybe not the full 1990s chaos, for example, but at least a little bit of, hang on, who's that in third? That's what I'd like, but at least that could be a good thing, right? You're with me? And also, the fifth positive, it buys time. That's only for 27 and 28. These rules, remember, are only for 2027 and 2028. Rally Journal, for example, says the Rally 2 kit cars are only eligible in the top category during those 2 seasons, with their eligibility expiring afterwards. So this is not necessarily the permanent future. It's a transition plan, a safety net, if you will, a way to get through those early years of the early years of these new regulations while the championship tries to attract, and let's be fair, they need to, more manufacturers, more cars. But with positives always come negatives. So let's have a look at that. This is why we have to talk about the other side, because this is where the argument gets a bit spicy. This first concern is simple. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is this really the top class? Fans want the WRC's headline category to feel special. They want monsters, rally monsters. They want drama. Well, they might get drama, but monsters, they want cars to look and sound like the absolute peak of rallying. And I completely understand. So when people hear that Rally 2 cars could fight at the top category, some may naturally ask, have we just downgraded the WRC? And let's be honest, that's a fair question. It really is. Because Rally 2 is brilliant, but it's supposed to be second tier. If the top class becomes too close to Rally 2, what then is the point of Rally 2? The WRC also risks losing some of that wow factor. And the second concern is confusion. Imagine explaining this to a rally outsider that wants to get into the sport. This is the top class, but some are WRC 27 cars and some are Rally 2 cars with a kit. But only for 2 years, and only if homologated before this date, and only if the manufacturer does a full season. What? Yeah, exactly. And at that point, the casual fan has already gone to make their cup of tea and said, see you later, I'm going to be watching something else. Now, the third concern is balance of performance BOP. We see it in WEC, we see it in other sports. And even if nobody wants to call it that, the FIA says the kit is designed to help create greater aerodynamic parity between Rally 2 and the WRC 27 cars. The parity, though, as we know, is the P word. It is a very dangerous word in motorsport, because if the Rally 2 cars, if they're too slow, well, the rule's going to be pointless and we're just going to have the Toyota Rally Championship. But if they're too fast, Toyota, because they're the only, the WRC 27 manufacturers, which we definitely know are going to be in it. Yes, I know there are other ones. They'll be like, why do we spend money on building a new car? All that money, millions perhaps, in investing, not the actual car itself, because we know how much they supposedly cost. But there we go. And if they're perfectly matched, people will argue about whether the championship has become artificial. I mean, you can't please everyone, can you? But basically, whatever happens, someone on the internet is going to be writing in capital letters. Yeah. Another concern is manufacturer motivation. So this is probably the biggest one. Now, if a Rally 2 WRC kit car can compete against a full-on WRC 27 car, why would Toyota or another manufacturer spend more money on building a WRC 27 machine? This could help them in the short term, absolutely, but hurt them in the long term. The FIA wants that WRC 27 to attract new manufacturers. They want the WRC 27 regulations, which are controversial in themselves, I know. And that could help, as I mentioned, in that short term. But if the cheaper route, as we mentioned, is good enough, some brands may think, thanks, we'll just do the kit. And that could slow down the growth of the sport. So why is this reaction so divided? Well, both sides have a point, don't they? And maybe that's a good thing when you have like a 50-50 divide. I don't know. The people supporting this, though, are saying, look, the WRC needs new cars. Check. It needs new entries. Check. It needs new competition. Check. A cheaper route into the top class is exactly what the championship needs. Check. And they're right. But the people against it are saying, hang on, the WRC's top class should be the top class. If Rally 2 cars are suddenly fighting for overall wins, we are lowering the standard, and I completely get that. They are also right. This is why it's such a controversial yet fascinating rule change, and I'm not saying fascinating necessarily in a negative or positive sense. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. It's not obviously good, it's not obviously bad, it's a compromise, and compromises in motorsport always make people angry, frustrated, because one side wants parity, one side wants practicality, and the FIA is standing in the middle with a clipboard saying, please, can we just have 8 more cars, which I completely understand. But maybe it's probably necessary at the moment because of where we are. It's not perfect, it's not risk-free, but it's necessary. The WRC cannot go into 2027 with a weak top-class entry list. It will look pathetic in days where Formula 1's really popular, WEC is getting more and more popular, MotoGP is getting up there as well. We have all of these other sports getting other people's attention, and Rally is unique. When you look at it, it looks amazing. It's never boring. Has there ever been a boring rally or something happening? There always is. And if Toyota are the only committed 2027 manufacturer right now, the FIA has to create options. They've been forced into this. And it has to give Hyundai, M Sport, Ford and private teams and Rally 2 manufacturers a way to stay involved. Because the worst case scenario is Rally 2 cars fighting near the front. The worst case scenario is barely anyone at the front. So it's not those Rally 2 cars then just fighting at the front. It's no one fighting at the front. Remember that. However, the FIA does have to be careful. The WRC 27 car still has to feel like a main event. The Rally2 kit should strengthen the field but not make the new cars pointless. Because if the kit car turns up and is embarrassing those brand new 27 machines, well, what's the point? But if they can get the balance right, initially, at least for 2 years, it could be brilliant. More cars, more drivers, more storylines, more chances for shock results. That's what we want. And maybe, just maybe, a top WRC class that feels alive once again. But here's the take from one of my friends, Chris. He's one of the commenters. We are really good friends. We made friends. He is the encyclopedia of rally, and I promise I'm going to read this out because I wanted to. And he's talking about the Rally 2 Plus thing is what he wanted all along. This is the thing that David Richards pretty much said a while ago. And he says, yet I am shocked. He said, they said Rally 1, 27, Rally 2 should be similar performance. And he's talking about now we need a Rally 2 kit and need to sign for all 14 rounds. We exclude so many. And why are they not the same performance now? Yeah, I completely agree. Rally 2 kit presented with 6 months to go. It's not that far, but notably, he says, only 2 weeks after the idea rose when many other had that idea before. This is the FIA admitting that Rally 127 is a mess. He said something else. 4-letter words, but yeah. But he said, what does the new promoter think of that? As we know, we're going to get news in this new promoter soon. Another mess that the WRC are currently in, but they'll sort themselves out. I'm hopeful. Oh, right. They don't have one, he says. Who is still surprised? Now, Lancia and Skoda said they don't want a Rally 2 kit, and that's interesting. So, what do we do then? Nobody is as great as the FIA when it goes for killing rallying, he says. Yeah, okay, calm down. I advocated for Rally 2 Plus, he says, all along, but not a knee-jerk reaction because the FIA would never admit that their original idea was BS. No, they won't. They're the FIA. And he says that calming down is easier said than done for a long-time rally fan that's very passionate about the direction where rallying is heading. And I'm sure many of you are echoing his thoughts. And he says what worries him most, and I struggle to argue, is that the new rule is only for 2 years. The FIA says they want stability. They want Rally 2 that is similar to the new Rally 1. So we need a new Rally 2 that is phased out after 24 months. Is that really stability? No, it really isn't. So he says to me, this sounds like they want to phase out the most successful category rallying has seen in over 50 years. Yeah, Rally 2 is. You have so many people now competing for Rally 2. And then you've got the European Rally Championship and National Championships as well. Many of them using Rally 2 cars. And he says replacing this with essentially a space frame category that was quite likely the biggest disaster in the entire WRC history. He does promise he's going to slow down ranting, but he says, okay, do you know what I see, he says, as the biggest asset of the WRC future? They this very unorganised contradiction the FIA has created. I kid you. He said the question still is, do we need a Rally 2 kit in the first place? If the promise was since 10 months ago the classes were level. He said a Rally kit has a new front bumper. What difference does that make then? A bigger rear aero, but only slightly bigger, and it weighs 10 kilograms less than a normal Rally 2. Well, okay, 120 instead of 1,220 instead of 1,230 kilograms, a drop of 0.7%. A WRC Rally 2 kit has a new bigger rear wing, but drops 10 kilograms, but with an extra spare wheel, that's 25 kilograms. So who is deciding on these rules? Well, not the promoter, he says, because I become less and less surprised that the FIA doesn't find a new promoter since over a year, because the whole thing's a mess. So when Lancia and Skoda, with their customer team, plus TalkSport, etc., said they don't want that, the FIA did it anyway. Yeah. Well, he said that's actually changed now, except creating even more confusion. It really is. Maybe this is the FIA's biggest hobby. We were told Rally 2 is competitive with Rally1-27. This is all of a sudden his biggest question mark. A Lancia or Skoda Rally 2 kit car will now have more rear downforce, which makes it slower in some corners and less balanced in others, potentially. To make up for it, it's lighter by the equivalent of a third of a spare wheel. Okay, the Rally 2 kit conversion is only €7,500, but, well, let's drop that air restrictor. That saves €7,500 in mechanics and black box programming, and have these cars up to 400 to 420 horsepower more. Plus, that'll be the noise we want. Me dreaming, why is that not unrealistic? I think it absolutely is, Chris. The most amazing news is that I'm not convinced how a Rally 2 kit car is faster than a proper Rally 2 car. It may not be. It's going to be really interesting comparing that. And he said this means the biggest problem now is for scoring points. The WRC points need a Rally 2 team, and it needs to do all rounds with 2 cars. So how's that sorted then? Well, he says, well, we've at least 2 Skodas at every WRC. Lancia is still new, but as I understand, Grayson is doing 11 or 14 rallies anyway, which is quite a lot. His sponsorship is going to help with that. And the second car could be shared between Johan and Leo Russell. Okay, just an idea. So it can be done. Just how, and he's questioning obviously the Rally 2 kit cars, and I completely understand. He said, well, I honestly don't know the answer, but rallying for me is simply not about space frame fantasy go-karts, and at the same time, I do not see where a Rally 2 kit car actually makes a difference to a real Rally 2. And I think that's going to be one of the arguments that a lot of people have. He says, when will the FIA admit that Rally 2 is the best category they've ever had? Well, never. If the FIA was made of men, rather than, and he's not saying women, he's saying something with a P. If they were a decent leader, he says, they could at least once in 60 years admit they made a mistake, but no, they can't. What do you guys think anyway in relation to that? Comment below. Let us know about the WRC. Is it doomed? I don't think it's doomed at all. I think we will have a WRC, a very different WRC in 2027. But there we go. If you did make it to the end though, please consider giving us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. If you did give us a subscribe, that would make me smile. If you already subscribed and you made it to the end of this 18, near 20-minute rant video, well done. We're not worthy. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon. Stay safe, and above all else, stay sideways and keep that optimism up. I am. Let's do it.